Welcome to Belcourt Castle. Today we are traveling to one of the most extravagant places in America, Newport, Rhode Island. When you mention Newport, people usually think of the enormous Gilded Age mansions like the Breakers or Marble House, symbols of unimaginable wealth. But among these palaces is Belcourt Castle, a place built from eccentricity, transformed by love, and ultimately home to one of the largest spectral collections you can imagine. It's not just a haunted house, it's a museum where the exhibits still come with their owners attached. This isn't the story of one haunted house, this is the story of dozens of spirits bound to ancient objects, all trapped together under one roof. Our story begins in 1891. The main character is Oliver Hazard Perry Belmont, a man who had it all, a graduate of the Naval Academy, a New York congressman, and in 1890 the inheritor of $60 million. A single man, divorced, and now with an unbelievable fortune. He decided he needed a summer villa in Newport. But Oliver wasn't like his wealthy neighbors. He was an eccentric collector. He was passionate about armor, 13th century stained glass, and above all, he was an expert carriage driver, a master of the four-in-hand coach. So he didn't just want a house. He wanted a place to display his collection, a place to entertain, and most importantly, a place for his beloved horses. He hired the best architect, Richard Morris Hunt, who had designed other famous mansions, to build his dream. The project cost $3.2 million, equivalent to $80 million today. And when Oliver explained his ideas, Hunt must have been baffled, but he respected his client. The result was Belcourt, a 60-room, 50,000 square foot castle designed in the style of a Louis XIII hunting lodge. But here is the most eccentric part: the entire first floor of this enormous building was a stable and carriage house. Belcourt had two massive carriage entrances in the north wing, not for guests to step out of, but so Oliver could personally drive his four-horse carriage straight into the middle of his mansion, a palace where the ground floor is a stable, and of the 60 planned rooms there was only one traditional bedroom. Oliver reasoned that he would only be there for 6 weeks in the summer, so why bother with guest rooms? This was a bachelor pad in the truest sense. The mansion was completed in 1894, a masterpiece of wealth and eccentricity. A majestic Gothic hall, a 70-foot-long ballroom with a 35-foot vaulted ceiling, and countless pieces of ancient stained glass. It was Oliver's private world. But then the inevitable happened. A year after Belcourt was completed, Oliver Belmont, the eccentric bachelor, fell in love. And he fell in love with none other than Alva Vanderbilt, the wife of his best friend and business partner, William Vanderbilt. In 1896, Alva, a strong and famous woman in high society, who had just forced her daughter Consuelo to marry the Duke of Marlborough, divorced William and married Oliver. Immediately, the bachelor pad had to change. Alva, now the mistress of Belcourt, got to work. She transformed the house dramatically. Alva immediately had a kitchen built. She converted Oliver's massive carriage room into a splendid Italian banquet hall. She renovated a study into her own bedroom and commissioned the stunning English library with a ceiling copied from Haddon Hall in England. Belcourt was no longer a hunting lodge. It had become a social palace. Oliver and Alva had 12 happy years together at Belcourt, but that happiness was short-lived. In 1908, Oliver passed away suddenly at the age of 49 from septic poisoning due to a ruptured appendix. Alva continued to live at Belcourt, dedicating herself to the women's suffrage movement. She passed away in Paris in 1933. The house was inherited by Oliver's brother Perry Belmont, who was 80 years old at the time. And this is when Belcourt's dark period began. In 1940, Perry, who apparently had no great love for Alva, auctioned off many of the collections and sold Belcourt out of the Belmont family. The house began a downward spiral. It was bought by George Waterman, who wanted to turn it into an antique auto museum, but city officials refused for zoning reasons. In 1943, Waterman sold it to Edward Dunn, who never lived there. Dunn rented the castle out to the military who were stationed nearby. And the place that was once Belcourt's magnificent stable and banquet hall was now used by the military as a workshop for equipment repairs. After the war, the house was abandoned, its windows boarded up, and it fell into serious disrepair. During these years, only a caretaker named Benny Collin lived there. The castle began to rot, attracting curious children and vandals. And here is a crucial detail. Benny Collin, to chase the kids away, came up with an idea. He pretended to be a ghost. He made strange noises and scared the children off. The kids ran back to town, spreading the story, Belcourt is haunted. Ironically, the caretaker's prank accidentally started one of America's most famous ghost legends. In 1954, the castle was bought for the bargain price of $22 to $500 by Elaine and Louis Lorillard. They had a brilliant idea: use the castle's fantastic acoustics to host the Newport Jazz Festival. And they did, but Belcourt was now too dilapidated. It was a sinking ship, needing an enormous amount of money and effort to save. The Lorillards quickly sold it, and in 1956, Belcourt found its destined owners. The Tinney family, Harold, Ruth, and their son Donald, bought the dilapidated castle. Harold Tinney had always dreamed of living in a castle. They weren't just wealthy, they were artisans, collectors, and people with restoration skills. They saw the beauty hidden beneath the dust. They renamed it Belcourt Castle and began the enormous job of restoration. And this, my friends, is where the story shifts from history to the paranormal. The Tinneys didn't just restore Belcourt, they filled it. They were massive collectors. They brought their own huge collection to Belcourt from over 30 countries: Persian rugs, French royal furniture, Oriental art, and countless suits of armor, weapons, and ancient religious sculptures. The Tinney family made Belcourt their true home for over 50 years. Donald Tinney even married a tour guide named Harl right in the castle. And immediately they realized they were not alone. Harl Tinney, who lived there for 52 years, had countless experiences. She said she believed in spirits, not ghosts. "I'm not afraid of ghosts," she said in an interview. "I'm afraid of real people. And I never felt anything evil in the house." But what she and her family experienced was truly chilling. The Tinneys eventually hired the famous psychic Virginia Smith, who identified at least 15 separate spirits in the castle. The most famous spirit, and perhaps the most frightening, is the monk. The Tinneys owned a German wooden statue of a monk. Harl Tinney recalled one night when she woke up and saw a man standing by her bed. His face was obscured by a monk's hood. He then turned and walked straight through the wall. This spirit seemed to wander wherever his statue was placed. At one point, he was seen walking out of the grand hall and into the ladies' restroom. Through the psychic, this monk communicated and said he wished to be moved into the chapel the Tinneys had built. After the statue was moved there, a visitor had a terrifying experience. She saw a solid physical monk in the chapel, seemingly preparing for a service. She asked Harl Tinney when the service was going to be held. Imagine her shock when Harl replied that there was no service and that she had just seen the spirit of the monk. Next, we go to the Gothic ballroom. This place doesn't just have one spirit, it has many. The most famous is the Angry Knight. In the room is a 16th century Italian suit of armor. The Tinney family and staff for many years heard terrifying screams and moans coming from this area, especially during the month of March. This spirit is apparently reliving his demise. He was ended by a spear that went through his visor. He was left to perish alone on the battlefield. Tour guides say that sometimes the helmet of the suit turns all by itself to observe the strangers in the room. Also in the ballroom are two ancient Gothic chairs known as salt chairs used at royal banquets. These chairs appear to be cursed. They are supposedly tied to the spirits of a king and queen. A strange electromagnetic energy is said to push people out of the queen's chair. The most famous story is about a woman on a tour who tried to sit in one of the chairs which are now roped off. As soon as she touched it, she was thrown by an unseen force into the middle of the room. Another visitor who simply placed her hand on the chair reported seeing a flash of light and smelling burning rubber. And the spectral collection continues. There is a samurai warrior seen strutting around the collection of Asian antiques. There is a mischievous spirit in the English library who likes to borrow people's belongings and then return them later. There is a spirit in the maid's room on the 3rd floor who likes to move things around. Some have seen the spirit of Alva Belmont in a ball gown checking on the galleries on the 2nd floor. Even after Donald Tinney, the owner, passed in 2006, his own spirit was seen by workers and guests at his memorial standing on the upper landing looking down. It's as if he had become part of the spectral collection in his own beloved home. And let's not forget the first spirit. It turns out the caretaker Benny Collins' prank may not have been entirely a prank after all. Paranormal investigators discovered that Belcourt had been accidentally built over a man's forgotten grave from an old cemetery that had been moved. The spirit of an older man has been seen wandering the banquet hall area, the very place that was once Oliver's stables. The ghost hunter Taps investigators came here many times. In one episode, they captured astonishing evidence. They heard footsteps walking toward them, and then their digital thermal camera recorded the footsteps retreating. Belcourt isn't a house, it's a crossroads. In 2012, after Donald passed and Harl Tinney decided it was time to move on, Belcourt was sold to Carolyn Raphaelian, the founder of the Alex and Ani Jewelry Company. She has been spending millions to restore the castle, returning it to its original glory. But the restoration doesn't seem to be driving the spirits out. They are still there. They are attached to the objects, to the building, to the land. Belcourt is a paradise for those who love the mysterious. It shows that when you collect antiques, you might not just be bringing home an object. You might be bringing home its former owner. And when you gather hundreds of attached objects from all over the world into one place, you don't create a museum. You create a spectral party. What do you think of Belcourt Castle? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you in the next haunted house profile.